It's now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Alec Coles, OBE, Chief Executive Officer of the Western Australian Museum. Thank you, Alec.
Well, thank you, Sally. May I begin by acknowledging the Honourable John Day, MLA Minister for Planning, Culture and the Arts, Mr. Del Carles, MLA Member for Fremantle, Miss Melissa Park, the Federal Member for Fremantle, Mr. Doug Thompson, Deputy Mayor of the City of Fremantle, and also his colleagues on Fremantle Council, Chris Leotea, Chief Executive of Fremantle Port Authority, Ron Packer, Chair of the Western Australian Museum's Maritime Advisory Committee, and a very special guest today, Licia Stazzonelli. Licia's family's name was registered on the first stage of the Welcome Walls, and Licia's kindly agreed to speak to us today about her experiences. I would also like to acknowledge the Noongar people, the traditional custodians of this land, and I pay tribute to their elders, past and present. And in doing so, it's my great pleasure now to invite Irene Stainton, Noongar Elder and Chair of the Western Australian Museum's Aboriginal Advisory Committee, to welcome you all to country. Irene.
Thank you, Alec, and good morning to everybody. The Honourable John Day, Minister for the Culture and the Arts, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you this morning, and I wish to congratulate the WA Museum's efforts on the continuance of the Welcome Walls project. At this location, the Derbarl Yerrigan, now known as the Swan River, meets the Indian Ocean, and it is very significant to my people. In accordance with Noongar beliefs, our ancestral being, the Waggle, created the river and all of our permanent water sources at the beginning of time. There are many significant places along the river, including places where the Waggle laid eggs, shed its scales, rested in the cool deep water near the old Swanbury, then continued on its creative journey, resting again at the Waggle Cave not far from here in North Fremantle. In traditional times, my people enjoyed the many camping places along the river, as there was plenty of food and access to fresh water. Also in traditional times, whales used to beach themselves in this general area, and on those occasions my people enjoyed the feast. Although there are many good stories about this place, to my people it also represents a place of great sorrow. Wadjubup, now known as Rottnest Island, is clearly visible from here, and it is the place where many Aboriginal men of great importance were imprisoned far from their homelands. These men suffered at the hands of their guards and were used as slave labour, and many of them lost their lives trying to escape. When we take a moment to reflect on the history of this general area, I am sure that you will all agree that it is both rich in traditional and contemporary culturally diverse. It is important to note that during the development of this wonderful museum, an important issue for Aboriginal people was to ensure that the rocky limestone bar where our men crossed the river and where our people fished remain for future generations. And I would welcome any of you to have a look at the rocky bar, which is clearly visible as you walk around the museum. Consequently, this important Aboriginal site remained, and as I said, it is clearly visible. It is a proud reminder of our past, our people, our country, and our spirit. Finally, as I welcome you this morning, I ask that you think about the importance of being welcomed to country. In traditional times, this practice meant that you were invited to fish and to hunt and to share our waterholes. But most importantly, being welcomed to country is about keeping you safe during your visit to Noongar land, and that in the event of a severe mishap, your spirit will be safe and welcome in this place prior to entering its streaming. Wanju, Wanju, Nanakaba, Nanjababuja, welcome all of you to my land.
thank you, Irene, for such a warm welcome and to a place that holds such importance historically and traditionally for your people. I would like to also acknowledge all of you here today who've come. It's an absolutely magnificent effort. It's a very hot day, so we won't keep you sitting in the sun too long, but thank you for making this launch of the final Welcome Wall such an exceptional day. Nearly 10,000 people have said they're coming today. I'm not sure if they've all turned up yet, but it is incredible. And now it's my great pleasure to welcome Steve Armstrong, who's going to lead us in the National Anthem.
Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, if you could please be upstanding for the Australian Anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gift of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains and let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Yes, you can sit down now. I'd like to sing a song right now which typifies the long journey that a lot of you people have come through, and what brings us all together as Australians today. And it's a great song, and feel free to join in during the course of this song. I'd like you to wave your arms around and get into the moment, and it goes something like this, please.
Came from the dream time, from the dusty red soil plains. I am the ancient heart, the keeper of the flame. I stood upon the rocky shores and watched the tall ships come. For 40,000 years I've been the first Australian. Came aboard the prison ships, bowed down by iron chains. I cleared the land, endured the lash, and waited for the rains. I'm a settler, I'm a farmer's wife, on a dry and barren run. A convict and a free man, I became Australian. Sing along. We are one, but we are many, and from all the lands on earth we come. We share a dream and sing with one voice. I am, you are, we are Australian. I'm the hot winds from the desert, I'm the black soil from the plains, I'm the mountains, I'm the valleys, I'm the drought and flooding rains. I am the rock, I am the sky, the rivers when they run, the spirit of this free land. I am Australian. We are one, everyone wave, but we are many, and from all the lands on earth we come. We share a dream, sing, and sing with one voice. I am, you are, we are Australian. We are one, but we are many, and from all the land on earth we come. We share a dream and sing with one voice. I am, you are, we are Australian. I am, you are, we are Australian.
Thank you.
Steve, that was incredible. Thank you so much. The hairs on the back of my neck are completely up now. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. There are so many people to thank today before I introduce Minister Day. Firstly, again, thanks to all of you that registered for this final phase of the Welcome Walls, and thank you for coming here to celebrate the day with us. I know that many of you have waited quite a long time for this day, and I'm delighted that we've finally been able to bring this project to fruition. And I would like to thank Minister Day particularly for his staunch support and commitment to this project and his assistance in helping us complete this phase, and also the Welcome Walls down at Albany that we will launch tomorrow. I'd also like to thank Fremantle Ports for providing land on which the final walls are built, to WA Building Management and Works, and to the City of Fremantle. We could not have done this without the assistance and cooperation of all those partners, and indeed many more, all of whom were part of our project team. Thank you to Cox, Howlett and Bailey Woodland Architects for their ongoing support and efforts as part of the team, and also to Frio Constructions, who built the last stage. Also like to mention Beckett's Products and Cooling Brothers, again, both who were critical to the completion of this project. I'd particularly like to thank my colleagues at the Western Australian Museum for their efforts here. We've had a big team working on this to bring it home. It's not just a question of building the walls. It was an incredible administrative job to make sure that all the communication was there. And in particular, I'd like to say a personal thank you to my colleague Jason Fair and his team. When I arrived in Australia only about 8 months ago, I promised Minister Day that we would complete the Welcome Walls within this year. That was very easy to say, it wasn't quite so easy to do, and Jason's the person who's led that through, so a great big thank you to him. I think he deserves that for all the sleepless nights he's had. I won't even tell you when we put the last bit of the walls in place. I'd now like to re-extend a warm welcome to Licia Stazzonelli, whose family name was registered on the first stage of the walls. As we reach the end of this project, Licia is one of those people who obviously provided support right from the very beginning, and I'd like her now to come to the lectern and say a few words about her experience arriving in a new country. Licia.
Honourable Minister, distinguished guests, our many friends here today. Who would have thought on the 11th of June 1950, as the ship the Oxfordshire was sailing into Fremantle with the Zalesko family on board, that today I would be standing here as a member of that family sharing my story. With my parents, Giovanni and Stefania, and my sister Marinella, We travelled as refugee migrants from a region called Istria in northeast Italy. During the month-long sea journey, I would often look at my school book about Australia and was really curious to find out about my new homeland. This book is currently on display at the State Library in Perth. After disembarking, we were taken by train to the Northern Military Camp. From the train, my new homeland looked like fairyland. All the little houses with white picket fences. One of the hardest things was leaving my grandmother behind. As well, there was the grave of my younger brother, who was tragically killed during the war. But we could not go back. Our land was occupied. We left both homes and business behind, together with family and friends. Like many of you here today, we came with nothing, only 2 trunks and 2 suitcases. As a parting gift, my school friend gave me a doll. I cherished this doll. However, while waiting in Naples to sail for Australia, my doll was stolen. I cried and cried. How much more could be taken away from me? I remember how difficult it was at the age of 12, learning a new language. At age 13, I started my first job at the Capri restaurant in Fremantle, which is still there today. In our first home in North Fremantle, I recall wheeling barrows of blue stone to help my dad build his cantina, his wine cellar. When we knocked down the old chimney, to our amazement, in the rubble, we found 2 gold sovereigns. Despite the sadness of all our loss and what could have been, my parents constantly achieved by working hard and improving their lifestyle. After 55 years, I went back to my city. How strange it felt. Walking along the streets, the buildings that once, as a child, appeared so big, now seemed so small. In my mind, I had kept this image of beauty and splendor, but everything was different. I felt very lost and sad. Arriving back at the Perth airport, I felt a sense of grounding and that I could breathe again. This was reaffirming my sense of belonging, of being settled, of being proud to be an Aussie. This is the place that I and my children know as home. Australia took us in as refugees, and we are proud to have contributed to the development of this nation. How wonderful it has been to have lived in this country all these years, free from war and turmoil. Thank you for acknowledging our contribution on the welcome walls of this beautiful museum. Today, it has been an honour to speak on behalf of the many displaced persons and migrant families whose names appear on the welcome wall. At the count of 3, I invite all of you to join with me in saying, Viva l'Australia! 1, 2, 3, Viva l'Australia!
Thank you, Licia. And before you're allowed to sit down, I'd like to present you with this gift, which I think is appreciation from all of us for sharing those thoughts with us. Thank you. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I promise I'll hand over to Minister Day in a moment. Before I do, I did want to draw your attention, sorry, quick advert here, to this booklet. Booklet? It's a book, it's a tome that's been produced by the WA Museum and is launched here today. We Came by Sea. Given that this is the final stage of the Welcome Walls, there was a strong feeling that we should produce, if you like, a publication that was closure on the project, and all the names of the registrants are actually listed in this book from stage one onwards. I would like to particularly thank Nonya Peters, who I can see sat in the front row there, for her work on this book and all the people who worked on it with her. It really is an incredible piece of work and demonstrates once again the rich history that there is, and I know that Nonya and I have plans to celebrate this in other ways in the future as well, we hope, because the turnout today just shows what incredible resonance there is from people who have come here from all over. Nonya was born in the Netherlands at the end of the Second World War, and she came here to Australia in 1949. So the book is produced by the WA Museum. There's a great big tent of them over there, and we don't want to put any of them back in store at the end of the day, so please go and visit it. It is now, you'll be pleased to know, I'm sure, my great pleasure to introduce the Minister for Culture and the Arts for Western Australia, the Honourable John Day, MLA, to now formally unveil the final stage of Fremantle Welcome Walls. Minister Day.
Well, thank you very much, Alec, and it's a pleasure to be here with you in your role as CEO of the Western Australian Museum. I also acknowledge fellow members of Parliament, of whom I'm aware are here: Adele Carl, State Member for Fremantle; Peter Abetz, State Member for Southern River; and Melissa Park, Federal Member for Fremantle; to Chris Leithea of Fremantle Ports, the Deputy Mayor of the City of Fremantle, Doug Thompson, and fellow councillors of the City of Fremantle, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls. It is really wonderful to be here this morning to be involved in unveiling the final phase of a project that I know has been close to the hearts of many Western Australians, and it is very gratifying to see such strong interest here this morning. There are many families whose names are represented on the walls here today, both the third stage and the previous stages, and it's wonderful to see such strong interest from members of the families of those names. And I know that some of you have come from a long distance to get here, and so you are particularly welcome. I do acknowledge Irene Stainton, and thank you, Irene, for your very warm Noongar welcome. I acknowledge the Noongar people as the traditional custodians of this land, and thank you for reminding us of the significance of this particular area in the history and the culture of your people, Irene. Noongar people did call this place Manjari, meaning gathering place, where locals and visitors engaged in trade and cultural exchanges long before Europeans arrived here. And it's very fitting that this place does continue to be a place of meetings, greetings, and also farewells. I think it is quite widely known, but it's very well worth reinforcing the fact that 1/3 of Western Australians were actually born overseas, 1/3 of our current population, a very significant proportion. And that does reflect the fact that Australia is one of the most multicultural nations in the world, and the Welcome Walls projects do pay tribute to those migrants who arrived by sea, in particular landing at Fremantle or at Albany, and to their contribution to their new home. Permanently moving to another country and leaving behind everything you have known is a move that does take a considerable degree of courage, and we've just heard some of that reflected here this morning. Tens of thousands of people did just that, including my own grandparents, and they arrived here with hopes of a fresh start and a new life. Some were lured by gold, particularly in the 1890s. Others were sent here as convicts prior to that time, and many were displaced by the ravages of wars, including the two largest wars that the world has ever experienced, and more recent wars as well. Still more were brought here as children to make the best of a strange land, and it is very pleasing that so many names of child migrants are also inscribed on these walls. Stories abound about the hardships that face so many of those who arrived here over the last 180 years. Equally, stories abound about the success of so many migrants, of their commitment and contribution to their new homeland. And for these reasons and many more, there's been a great deal of anticipation surrounding this project, and I have certainly looked forward, together with all of you, in sharing its completion here today. Looking back over the project, it is very notable that when it was planned for back in 2004 under the previous government, it was intended to be a one-off project that would display approximately 2,000 inscriptions. And what happened did take everybody by surprise. The immense public response following the project's announcement meant that the Western Australian Museum was overwhelmed with phone calls, letters and emails requesting a place on the walls. A rapid revision took place and there was a decision to expand the number of inscriptions to 8,000. Following the launch of the first stage of the Welcome Walls, public interest remained so high that a second stage was announced, adding a further 8,500 inscriptions to the second stage. At the launch of those walls, yet another stage was announced for Fremantle and a similar project for Albany, which was of course the state's first port. Today, as we unveil the final set of Welcome Walls, there are more than 21,000 inscriptions paying tribute to some 45,000 immigrants to Western Australia. And the Albany Welcome Walls, which will be unveiled tomorrow, also hold an additional 500 inscriptions. One of the interesting aspects of this whole project is that many families with their names inscribed on these walls have had to undertake some research into their family history. And I do particularly thank the following agencies and organisations who have provided assistance with that research. In particular, the staff at the State Library of Western Australia and at the State Records Office of Western Australia, and also the Perth Office of the National Archives of Australia, and to the dedicated team at the Western Australian Genealogical Society. To all of you, I do offer my sincere thanks and congratulations on a job very well done and what has been achieved. Not only did your work assist in those who are researching their families' arrivals in Western Australia, but it also reveals so many stories of immigration and life in earlier times. I also particularly thank Fremantle Ports for their strong support of the project and the organisations and the staff's efforts to facilitate the construction of these walls, not least by allowing some of the walls to be built on what is actually Fremantle Port's land. All of the stages of the Welcome Walls in Fremantle have been designed by Perth architects Cox Howlett and Bailey Woodland, and this third and final stage was built by Frio Construction. So congratulations and thank you to everybody from the architects and the builders who have produced the final result here today. The new walls integrate key elements of the first two stages, completing the project as a seamless feature of both the Western Australian Maritime Museum and the Victoria Quay waterfront. The government has been keen for the Western Australian Museum and Fremantle Ports to collaborate closely over the walls to ensure that the Welcome Walls are a good fit with the overall master plan for the waterfront here at the port. And over future years we'll see a lot more development in this precinct. Once completed, the project will contribute to what will become a very busy precinct that I think will be an attraction in its own right. So meanwhile, we now have striking outdoor galleries both here and in Albany, and they pay tribute to the migrants from many lands and cultures who have helped make this nation what it is today. So in conclusion, in addition to thanking those who have been particularly acknowledged, I add to Alec's thanks for all of the staff at the Western Australian Museum who have been involved in what has actually been quite a complex project, to those at the City of Fremantle who have assisted, those in building management and works, and everybody else who has played a role. So it is my very great pleasure to officially launch the third stage of Fremantle Welcome Walls, and I do invite you, if you haven't already done so, to view the walls and enjoy today's celebrations. Thank you for your patience.
Well, thank you, Minister. In a minute, I'm just going to ask the Minister, Irene and Licia, to come down and unveil a plaque down there, after which I hope that everybody will be able to enjoy the rest of the day here. There's plenty to see. I just did want to say a couple more thank yous. Before you came in, you will have noticed the calming music of Bronwyn Wallace, our harpist, so a big thank you to her for keeping us calm in the heat. I'd like to thank all my friends and colleagues on the stage, obviously Minister Day, Licia, Irene and Steve for the rousing singing. And finally, I'd like to say a very big thank you to all the staff and volunteers of the WA Museum who've turned out today, most of them unpaid. They're the people in the maroon shirts who are helping you find your way around. Thank you so much to all of you for your commitment too. I would now like to invite Minister Day to come down and unveil the plaque with Irene and Licia, and Sally will come back to the microphone and tell you what happens next. Thank you.